Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and today I have a video on Star Brand, not the Star Brand. Now, if you imagine, I've done many videos on John Byrne, and I will do a video of both. I did one about the Star Brand done by John Byrne, my two favorite issues of the Star Brand series. Now I'm going to my favorite issue of the Star Brand before Byrne, the thing that made me a fan, and then the two issues after that where the series tanked so badly that I didn't buy issue 7. I was so upset. But if you can tell which issue has gone through the most, has gone through the most pain, and that would be issue 4. If you look at issue 4 has been through it, right? Now, I want to say, you see some action-packed covers, and I believe the cover for 4 was action-packed also. Starbrand was actually, if you strip Starbrand down, you have a modern-day Vertigo or romance comic book. And you'll see in this book, even though there's some action and some cool stuff done by here, but there's a lot of stuff that John Romita Jr. is doing in this book that really is just killer. Like, you just can't. It's hard to compete with an artist this great. Like, look at the foot here. Like, the really someone relaxed, that sort of thing. Like the hand on the beer. Like, he really knows how to capture a mood, capture the clutter. Just someone relaxing, whistling with a beer, and of course, I mean, you see the drama, the comic book drama we don't need. We don't really need, but he does that well too. So I'm going to go through this issue, right? Look at this. This is when you know you got comic books. You got one without a cover, right? Because I got a couple of these, right? I think I got rid of some of them in cleaning up and trying to make space. But this is a couple because it is one of my favorites that I kept, right? So Myron hits him with an axe while he's not paying attention, and shows nothing hurts him. So it's just sort of like what you would do, anyone would do as a kid type of deal of testing out. And then of course he has the blowtorch, not feeling that either. And then they say, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. So then he's relaxing, and this is trademarked to almost every issue of Star Brand. There's a flashback to how he got the power. Just in case you're the first person ever reading it, you have the entire history again. So this, when you look at when Byrne did it, he followed suit. He stopped suing, but in his initial story, he went through most of the history, and then the second issue, he did a reverse of the history, giving you the history of the old man. That is trademarking the convention of a shooter comic book, right? So we have this book here, and this goes through his history again with Myron. You'd like to hear the story again, Ken? So he talks about riding on his bike, seeing the old man giving him the Star Brand. See, there's a Star Brand looking like a tattoo back there. Tattoos are risque, so he has to hide the tattoo, or else it's a big thing. People flip, they lose their mind. So playing to that, see all this great recapping, this sort of the great tension, and him showing Myron that he has powers. This is also one of the first stories where the secret identity is kind of tossed out, where it's not. It has Hamlet elements, the Stanley elements of comic books, but it also has him talking to people, him having people that are not superheroes that know about his powers, right? And Myron's one of them. And I say one of them because there's a couple, right? You met some of these guys in my other video that I did. Then at the same time, while he was doing that, another alien came. The other alien came to steal the Star Brand, and then the Star Brand let loose the power and killed that other alien. And then, of course, there's something weird going on with his girlfriend Barbara's kids. Now, this is where we get into the romance part, because this is his main girlfriend, Barbara, and her daughter. Now, in the earlier issues, I think it's issue 2, or maybe 3. I guess it's 2 because John Romita Jr. drew it. We're also introduced that he had another girlfriend who had a kid. That the kid is missing Ken Cannell. And, he sends the alien back, right? So they go through all this stuff. And then, the place is a mess. Of course, they have to clean it up. And then he goes back to his job. And he's using his powers to straighten out bumpers. Then he hears there's a robbery. And he's like, hey, I could have done something about that. And he's like, yeah, so here we get to the Hamlet part where he's sharing with Myron. Now we're back to the Hamlet of thinking what he could have done. Right? Something that you would see in the Spider-Man comic book, like talking in his head. And instead of that, we constantly showing you what he can do. Then this also shows you how his powers work, right? He wants to get a haircut. He has to think about turning off his powers, right? So there we go. And then he's running and he's meeting Debbie Fix, who he calls a duck, right? So as he comes in, of course he's late. And then we have someone who, he brought something, can't wait to see. She loves it. It's a female duck. And then she says, you flew with the Starburn power? And he's like, shush. So if you keep that in mind, she's somewhat of an airhead, right? And this, in this time of having so many powerful females, this is just an ordinary character, right? And then, of course, they go back to his place. And then, of course, this is where the romance comes in, right? So this does something not exactly similar to Steranko, but the pass into the background, and then sometime later. Now this page felt pretty hard for Debbie, and this is still, if this page ever came up in comic books, if this page ever came up in comic books, I would try to find it. And then at the same time, Barb comes. Now in these 3 issues, you're gonna see a lot of stuff play out, right? And this is his main girlfriend, so Debbie runs out, right? She goes, she sees the tattoo, and we have a classic romance, and we're talking about the tattoo. He says, oh, I'll wash it off. Then he moves it. So this is the thing that really gets on my nerves, is the tattoo being this big of a deal. But notice where Barb is, and look at the tone and the tension here in the story. Then you have a fake smile. It's just so much great stuff that John Romita Jr. is doing. Then we saw the table. We see the table here, right? If we go back, if we were paying attention, the picture is on the table here in this great shot of Debbie right there. This bottom page here, I just lost it as a kid. And he goes to the table and the picture, and he feels like a D-bag, right? So he goes back to Myron's house, tossing stuff around, and he's talking to him for a little while, right? And he shows his power again, he's stretching. But then this is where people say that Myron is his friend. Nobody reads this book, right? So Myron asked for $50 and said, you want paid? And I think he wanted paid. So now he has to work off these sessions. So then he's like, so much for you, Feldman, some friend. So he's upset with Myron. So this shows they weren't on good terms, right? And Myron was being a little bit tougher with Ken, and it plays out in the later Burn run, right? So he's trying to figure things out. He's calling the office about some sort of UFOs, and this leads to the superhero thing. Then he decides he's going to go to Washington. Yeah, he kind of decides against that. Then gets some notes, figures some things out, talking to people. And this is moving away from in between the Hamlet stuff and the stuff you see in Buffy, where you have people to talk to. And he goes back to see Barb, and he meets Wendy, Barb's babysitter. And Barb's babysitter is kind of dolled up. And he said, hey, you want to watch TV with me? And he then, of course, he makes the mistake of guy, hey, maybe some other time. Promise, great. And then she's checking him out. And then she's 17. And this is where we go into which both, no, I don't think Burns said, but Mark Runwell said, he's not the greatest of guys, right? But he's thinking about the 17-year-old's body, right? This is very much a romance comic, right? So he has many things. And then, of course, look how creepy he is. Sitting outside of Barb's house. Sees Barb with some dude, kisses, and then next thing you know, you hear some screams, and then we get to the superhero part. We see everyone running, and we see this creepy person. So, of course, being the hero that he is, or he tries to be sometimes, he follows. Then we see someone kind of rabid, and they're talking about stuff, so they seem like they're the aliens. And the alien does something weird to him, so he starts losing his powers. Then he's just getting beat the hell out of. And then I could kill. So Starbrand decides, even without his powers, he wants to make sure he can keep in shape. And of course, he's keeping a journal. So we got through this issue, and we should have taken as much time as it took, because it is my favorite issue of it, even though there's some dull stuff in there. Hey, that's why I always go to say this is better a romance comic book than well, this is where the romance goes left too, right? So we get to this issue. This is pretty self-explanatory, right? Coming over with food and presents. And then of course they're supposed to be going to work, but then of course they make some private time, right? So she gives him some flashlights, stuff to use, or use his powers, help him fly when he's flying around. And then of course he's gonna go to his parents' house for 2 seconds, right? His family and Barb are there. And then they're there. He needs to go because he remembers that Debbie's there. And he's not sure where she's at. She says she loves you, Ken. But of course she's saying she's seeing someone else. And then he said, hey, let's talk about get together. And she leaves. And then look, somehow Debbie the Duck is hiding in the car. So it kind of shows you what their relationship is like for her. She'll kind of do anything for him. And that's going to go south in this issue. And then, once again, they go through the history of the Starbrand again. The entire history, yet again. Just in case this is your first issue. And usually for Origins, should be like once a year or something like that, you go to the Origin. But, so he decides to blow some steam off. And then he comes up on the beach out of nowhere. Runs into some girl. And then next thing you know, they kind of relate. He goes to her beach house, to the sun, just goes off and has some casual sex. She's not happy. He's just thinking he has a lot of stuff on his mind. So he's trying to figure things out, right? And he says, I guess this is too much to hope for, but if you ever get over who she is, would you look me up? Please. Almost dear begging. So he's really thinking about Barb. But then at the same time, he sees the babysitter. Now he's kind of more feeling about Barb because she's got a new boyfriend. And this is kind of a trick that kind of thing that happens to dudes when they've kind of let a good thing go, right? So she's there, and he of course thinks he's hurting her, but he's not, and they're kind of getting it on. So then of course he goes off, sees, some things going on. And then we get to Starbrand versus some terrorists. And of course, he handles everything. It's a little too dramatic for a new universe thing. And he also reveals his identity, but of course they're terrorists, so they won't, for some reason, figure out who it is. He goes back home, talk about everything's been handled. He sees Barb. And he meets her. Even though she had this moment excursion with the other guy, kind of lets her know that he loves her. And this is supposed to be the moment. So then, of course, he has to go break up with Debbie, right? And he meets up with Debbie, and she has this total breakdown. This is where I kind of lost it, because Debbie was kind of my favorite character in here. And even though I like Barb, it probably would have been easier if he kind of kept with both of these girls. But she goes nuts. She goes totally nuts. I was totally not with it, right? I was not happy about that. So she's like, talking about surviving if he doesn't come back and see it. And he's like, what the hell? So we have a Hamlet moment. The daughter's still reacting crazy. This is something that never gets figured out. Daughter's just so acting up. They meet up. They're so happy. And deals with Lori. And then, of course, still, all this stuff. He's got Barb. He talks about the woman. There's no one like Barb, but look at him. He's looking out the window, still staring. So, this is what kind of guy Starbrand is, right? So, we get to my finale. And it's the saddest part. I told you what my favorite character is. And then we have on the cover The Old Man versus Starbrand by the classic team, the Ghost Rider team, Javier Saltares and Mark Texeira. And we have him constantly doing his Hamlet stuff, which of course is gorgeous. And then, of course, he's just flying around. Very cool stuff. He's with Barb, still working out with the power off. And then still asking about that damn tattoo, which is ridiculous. Goes to work, sees some hottie that he's interested in. Of course, checking her out. Jokes about his boss's accent. Talks about how smart he is. Thinking about moving him to sales. That'd be a step up for him. He's gonna lead the common men. But this is a hook that Burns sort of plays with. That this guy who's a mechanic he's smart enough to transfer into sales. And then something that, why is he in this sort of dead-end job if he's that smart? And course, he's trying to get rid of the Star Brand again. Some dumb reason. He's going to see Debbie, and this is another shot here where he's like, she's saying she gained some weight, and then she was like all in the right places. He said, "The bikini, come and show you," and he's like, "Nope, you gotta go. He's gotta leave. He knows it's too much." And then of course the old man shows up. Now I always describe this as, what if Albin Sur returned and tried to kill the Green Lantern, right? And then of course we get a little history of this again, yet again. They talk about this so they can talk. And here's a key point. Are you here to take it back? No. It's yours. It's not mine to take. Even if such a thing was possible. I came back because honor demands that I inform you that some things that you, as the bearer, should attend to. Right, so this is a key point, right? Then at the same time, his jacket, which has been invulnerable to harm, gets ripped. He sees Deb. He sees Barbara comes down, but he's thinking about Debbie. So this guy just can't figure things out. He'd rather be but instead of doing stuff with her, he's trying to figure out the jacket. Right? Tell us about a war. Yet he has to go and help. Then, of course, here, this is the thing that Byrne picked up on. That Debbie, though she, out of Mouse Babes, she has sort of power over other things too. He could transfer his power to the suit. And then, no, this way it reveals that the old man put a spell on Laurie's daughter, right? And then Debbie kind of goes up, but Barb is upset, right? And then he said he couldn't take the Star Brand, but then for some reason he can. It's kind of wacky. Barb is really upset, and of course, Debbie calls, and that gets Barb upset again. So see, the romance stuff is pretty heavy. And he said, the old man was prowling around, and then there was a large crash. And he said, "Oh my, Debbie." Until then, yes, here he is. He made a big mistakes. Perhaps when we see that the old man still has some strength, right? So this is where we get a big fight. So this is like Green Lantern versus Albin Sur, right? Albin Sur goes totally nuts and tries to kill him. So we get a hell of a fight. But Ken doesn't know where he's at. So we stop here because at this point I was so pissed off that it turned into your standard superhero story where the Lois Lane, Debbie Fix, the duck, gets put into a hospital. And I was just like, I'm out. I might come back, but right as of right now, I'm totally out. So looking at these bits that were picked up by Byrne, with the old man coming back and going crazy, Myron being, and Ken not being friends. And the way the story ends is that Debbie and Ken are kind of together. So I think I will sort of end keeping this page up. And I guess there's another better page, but sort of one of my favorites, right? So this is it. This is where Starburn goes really south. Not to say it was that great beforehand, but it kind of goes down in quality, or steadily goes down in quality, leading to where you get the most and more action, the duller it gets, right? So ultimately, John Byrne did push a lot of energy into it. A lot of people who didn't read the book decided that he had changed Ken Cannell, but Ken kind of went through, because of the mistake he had, and he makes tons of mistakes in this book. So he makes another mistake in the Byrne run. That leads to a big, terrible thing, and of course, he goes crazy. But then he comes out of it by issue 19 or 17 or 18. So this is what I have. I think, do I have two in? I think I have 1, 2, 3, but I mean, these are the key ones here. This is the trademark of it. Outside of meeting Ken's girlfriend before this, who had a kid who Ken doesn't deal with her kid either. So that leads to Ken being a jerk. So this is just not your classic just deciding that he's Superman, because he's not. The shooter never planned for him to be. He's even said that this guy is a D. He hasn't said it's a D-bag, but he's going to say he's going to rise to the occasion at some point. So, all right, Spinner Rack out.